How's everybody doing? Is it what was the weather like up in the mountains today?
Magic today.
Yeah, very good.
That's a beautiful thing. When it's magic on the mountain, it's just a special thing, isn't it? That's so good. So we're kind of on the edge of spring right now, and those of you who have been part of the Coach Academy in previous years or that know me know that in the last 5 years I became a beekeeper, and springtime is a pretty radical time here on our property, on our land, because on any given moment, one of my beehives, which is coming out of winter, will swarm, and it's kind of a miracle of nature. It's one of the coolest things to be part of, but it requires like seriously dynamic kind of responsiveness from their coach who's living on the land, or they're probably coaching me actually. And I was halfway up a mango tree 2 days ago with a net, trying to capture literally like 40,000 bees. And strangely enough, I thought about this group and the path of coaching. And so just as a check-in, I wanted to kind of introduce you to 3 phases of the beehive life, and have you think about how it relates potentially to your work as a coach. Because I find, strangely enough, the more time I spend with the bees, it informs a lot of what I do. So the bees have lots of phases, and we're going to be talking about phases of coaching and stages and steps in coaching tonight. With the bees, it's complex, but there's kind of like 3 main activities that are going on concurrently, but they do also happen in a chronological space. There's when a beehive is first formed, the very first thing that has to happen is the bees have to draw the comb. And this process of drawing the comb is it's like an engineering feat. It requires absolute, precise, coordinated preparation, collaborative effort, and they really take the time to actually get this part right, because if they don't do the planning right, if they don't set the comb right, then everything else is kind of fucked. Like they can't go out and get nectar and put it anywhere, right? So the whole survival of the hive firstly depends on them planning and setting up this like basic framework that the rest of the bees can grow into. Once they have all these perfect hexagonal, 3-dimensional hexagonals stacked on top of each other, then they can get into this sort of daily rhythm of gathering nectar and pollen and laying eggs and kind of feeding the young, and this whole kind of disciplined focus of like, and the bee's life is mostly very, very disciplined. Each one has a role. Every day they're like really on purpose, but it's disciplined, focused, follow through. And this goes on for months and months and months. And then every once in a while, when the hive is full and there's time for like an evolutionary step, there's a swarm. And what happens with the swarm is literally half of the bees and the queen will leave the swarm or leave the hive in search of a new home, and they'll leave the previous hive for a new queen to be born, and the other half of all the bees. And this is a risky move. It's a radical departure from discipline, but it's ultimately what's needed in order for the species to grow. So it requires this sort of risk, this change, this discovery, and kind of leaping out into the world. And so the bees have this very disciplined planning, very disciplined focused follow through, and then these moments where breakthrough approach, where changing the discipline is needed. So I'm going to send you to a breakout room just for 5 minutes to say hello to whoever you get with, and my question for you is, where's your sweet spot in your coaching? Are you like really love to be in the planning, the preparation, the collaborative effort, the really thinking about all the pieces, the design space of a season, of a day, of a campaign? Or are you really just love being on the mountain, kind of setting up, really working the runs, training a little bit at a time, really wax on, wax off, disciplined effort, watching those incremental improvements? Or do you really come alive in those moments when some sort of a break from the pattern is needed, some sort of a break from the discipline is needed in order to allow an athlete or a team to go to another level? So, or somewhere in between. So how do you relate to this is my question. And I'm going to send you to a breakout room and just have a 5-minute conversation with whoever you end up with, and say hello if you don't know them. And then we'll come back in 5 minutes and get ready for our conversation with Shane. James, where's the sweet spot in your room? What's going on with you guys?
Hey, Chip. We had a couple. We were jumped in with an alpine coach, a free ski coach. I got a free skier and a snowboarder here. We were talking about, well, the love of the outdoors, of course, is what drew everyone here in the first place. But then also the connection that you make with, with particular athletes, where you build something together over a long period of time. That's kind of that.
Yeah. There is something about that, isn't it? About that kind of like, there's something about the long-term journey that you can go on, with an athlete or a team, and you build that sense of rapport and that sense of knowing each other, and that's, that kind of through the many steps along the way. Tom Hodges, what was going on in your room?
Maybe we were just talking about being busy bees at this time of year, that daily grind. It's pretty funny analogy. Just different experiences we've had building on it. But yeah, I think right now we're right in that gathering, sort of the middle phase is what we sort of all landed on.
Yeah, I think this time of year for sure. And is there an aspect of the coaching where you personally find you're strongest, or that you feel drawn to?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting analogy, the one you've got here, because they're like, I'm sort of across those first two spectrums. And I'm definitely working on that planning and coordination sort of side of things. There's no team without that, like you sort of talked about with the bees. You got to have that in there, but then that daily focus is like, it's sort of what you do. And then in my sport, we've got an interesting scenario where we're trying to do that breakout, that swarm thing. So it's sort of, dancing across 3 different fields at once. Yeah. But at the moment, I don't know where I fit exactly in there, but right now I'm just all I can see is the grind. So
yeah, totally. There's certain times of year where all you can see is the you're just so in it, right? Interesting. And I would say probably, even if you look at a micro level or a macro level, there, inside of your team, there'd be athletes that, that planning, that coordination, that really setting things up is where they're at. There's other athletes that actually just need to be putting in the time more and kind of wax on, wax off, where there's others athletes at a given day that might be ready for a breakthrough or some sort of interruption to the discipline. Cohen, anything to add from your perspective, your experience, or your group? You with us, Cohen? All right. How maybe stepped away? How about Renee?
Yeah, we kind of felt similar in that generally the reason you kind of get into coaching is to do the coaching portion of it, and that kind of falls into that daily discipline focus. And I know personally that's the area that I really enjoy, that kind of structure, the grind, getting in, doing the same thing kind of every day until we see change. and that the planning and that sort of stuff is a little bit of a, I guess, a cash in. Like you've got to do that to get to the good stuff almost. And if it's not done right, then the good stuff's not quite as good. But we both felt that we really enjoyed the grind, I guess, in the middle, where you're really coaching and working with your athletes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think my relationship previously to the planning and the coordinating has been a bit like what you described. It's kind of like that thing you have to do. And actually working with the bees has changed that for me, because I've realized, wow, if you get that, if you actually take the time and give that like real effort, it really sets you up well, right? For then digging into the nectar phase. And then you've got this kind of like really broad foundation. And I think I used to resist planning because I tend to be a bit spontaneous and thought, well, that's going to limit my spontaneity. But actually, I've found totally the opposite. Like when I've got the comb drawn well, it actually frees up a part of me then to be totally present and respond in the moment. But I had to learn that over time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I don't enjoy planning, but if I do the planning right, then I enjoy coaching a whole lot more.
Yeah, very cool. Now, Ben, you were talking on the break how much you enjoy the planning. That's always been a sweet spot for you. What is it about that has that always been the way you've been? Or, why is that part, kind of in your sweet spot?
Yeah, thanks, Chip. Yeah, I don't know. I think the later I got within my career as a coach, I think I just really started to kind of lean towards that, 4-year, planning around Olympic Games and World Championships, and, diving down into the detail with budgeting and program planning and really trying to, lift the program and the athletes, within that planning. And yeah, I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed that part of it. Probably more than standing on the side of a run in the end, if I could be honest with you. But I think that was just me at that particular time. But I think in the early years, I didn't love the planning as much, and I wanted to be more just in the moment coaching. So I think it changed and evolved a little bit for me over time.
Yeah, I know that the last couple of months and now has been a super dynamic time for you, like in the kind of post-Beijing period and in the setup of the next quad across all the different snow disciplines. Any kind of opening remarks for us? Any opening reflections as we step into this conversation tonight from your perspective? And
yeah, just on that piece, I guess. Well, it's not finished yet. It's still going. I think it's ever evolving, and that planning process, or that review and planning, that check and challenge. I think that just happens. It's starting to happen more and more, I think, with program planning, that you're doing that quite a bit throughout the year. And I think that's a good thing. I think it keeps you on track and really allows you to, build world-class programs and world-class athletes within that. But yeah, it's been an exciting time post Beijing. It's been a lot of moving parts within winter sport, and it's exciting and pretty dynamic, and it's still going at this point, which is great. Just a few opening remarks. Apologies, I missed the last academy session, but really, really cool to see this cohort again. I know it's great to be back, in the mountains. I was up at Buller last week, after probably 2.5 year hiatus from being on snow, and it's just so cool to see, events running again, programs running again, coaches coaching, and athletes, doing their sport. It's really cool. And I hear there's a lot of snow around at the moment, which is also pretty cool. I think there's snow in Jindabyne, and there's a lot of snow on the mountain. So yeah, looking forward to connecting with everyone, hopefully, as the season goes on, and wish you all the best with probably what is probably only about 6 or 7 weeks left of the season. I think it goes pretty quickly here in Australia. But yeah, nice to see everyone tonight.
It's awesome, Ben, and it's awesome to have you with us. And I think there's something about the shortness of the Australian season, or the length of the Australian season is a bit like summer in Alaska for the bees, right? They got a very short window. And I would imagine that, to your point, Tom, the bees in Alaska would be very voracious in their harvesting of honey and nectar because they got a small window. And I think when it snows here in Australia, when the lifts are open, that's just where you are just completely in it for that period. So again, thanks everybody for taking the time to be here. I'm going to take a deep breath and step us into our main conversation tonight, and that is with Shane Pill.